Operating regulations. Control operator. Station identification, third-party communications, that's the fun one. Control operator is the licensed amateur responsible for making sure transmissions comply with FCC rules. That's the control operator. Must have a valid FCC-issued amateur radio license. This is yellow. The class of license held by the control operator determines the transmitting frequency privileges of an amateur station. I'm an amateur extra. You don't have a license. You're sitting in my shack. And I say, go ahead. You can run the radio all you want. I'm responsible if you screw up.
And you can run that radio at all of his privileges.
My privileges. Because I am the control operator. We'll go into a little more. Yes, ma'am.
So I could just make a comment that the other day Steve was showing me the radio and I was playing with it. It's like, oh, we're going to do this. But anyway, I made a contact and I gave my call sign, talked a little bit, and then I mentioned that my control operator was sitting in the shack here and his call sign was blah, blah. Perfect. The guy came back and said, oh yeah, I see he's an extra. So he looked it up.
Yes, he did. He's looking. No, he was probably looking you up, and he went, "Oh, I'll look up that control operator." Yeah, that 9-year-old extra that I talked to, 9 years old. I know that's a little kid I'm talking to. I'm like, so do you have a control operator there? Because if you're talking to someone without a license, you're in trouble too.
Last night, Bruce, to the egg on that.
Part of it.
Yeah, I talked to did third party to one of Mike's grandkids.
I didn't hear that part. So I got this 9-year-old. I'm like, so do you have a control operator there? Because if I'm talking to someone without a license, I'm on the hook too. If I know that, I'm not allowed to talk to them at all. And she's like, no, I'm an extra. I'm looking it up. Blew my mind. Okay. Class of license held by the control operator determines the transmitting frequency privileges of an amateur station. Like I said, that 2-year-old that got on my radio during my net, they did not have a license. They were operating under something we're going to get to here in a short time, which I encourage you all to support and do. Station control operator must be designated by the station licensee. So if you don't own that radio, the guy who does, he's a station licensee. Hopefully he has a license. And he says you can use it. Kind of a really silly question to even have anymore because of the way they've changed the licensing. The FCC's primary concern is that transmissions are made only under the control of a licensed operator. That's what they care about. An amateur station can never transmit without a control operator, but it's the government. So we have exceptions in an emergency, of course. Control operator must be present at the control point of the station, the on-off switch, or remotely connected by a control link.
What constitutes an emergency? Thank you. I was just going to go there.
I think we cover that, but go ahead.
Yeah, but here's the bottom line, okay? Yes, in an emergency, you can do whatever you have to do to get through and get some help for you or someone else, or in the case of a major conflagration, Almeida fire comes to mind. And all of that is perfectly reasonable, regardless of your license status. However, all of your actions will be reviewed by a government agency later.
And
saying if it's to protect life and property, right? Basically, that's your bottom line.
Right.
That constitutes an emergency. So be real cautious because somebody else is going to be evaluating what you did.
Right. So the key, though, unlike self-defense with a firearm or whatever, you can defend property, or you can, emergency includes protection of property. So if there's a fire in a field, that's property and it's burning and it's, there's a building over there or something, you can get on the radio. Unless there's a big red light sitting around it and all that. If there's fire trucks there already, that's not probably an emergency. That word's got out. But the protection of people and property. Control point is a location at which the control operator function is performed. That can be sitting at the radio or somewhere else, depending on what classification we're operating under. The FCC presumes the station licensee to be the control operator unless documentation to the contrary is in the station record. So the AK7SB repeater, that's on AK7SB's butt. There's no documentation saying anything otherwise, so I'm good to go. She's in trouble if that repeater messes up. Well, that's what it says. The station licensee. They presume that she is the one that's responsible. Non-licensed people can use a ham radio but only when a control operator is present. We will cover these third-party contacts in more detail later. The control operator is solely responsible for station operation. Licensed guests can use the ham radio. In this case, both the control operator and the guest ham are responsible for station operation. Now, if the guest is a technician and he's operating in amateur extra privileges because I'm an extra, I'm the control operator, he is not. There's no shared responsibility there. I'm the one on the line because he's operating in my privileges. What is a space station? Any Trekkies? Wow, no hands. Oh, Danger Will Robinson? According to FCC Part 97, a space station is defined as an amateur station located more than 50 kilometers above the Earth. 50 kilometers. The ISS is more than 50 kilometers. If you're not 50 kilometers or more, you're not going to stay up there very long anyway. Unless you got a lot of fuel and you just keep burning.
So you better have a lot of gas.
Yeah. Okay, any amateur allowed to transmit on the satellite uplink frequency may be the control operator of a station communicating through an amateur satellite or space station. So I have privileges on the uplink frequency, but I don't have privileges on the downlink frequency. How come I can still make a communication?
Because you're only carrying what
I'm only receiving that coming back. I'm not transmitting. Correct. Okay, when may an amateur station transmit without a control operator? Never. What determines the transmitting frequency privileges of an amateur station? See, they're trying to trick you here with Charlie, aren't they?
Yes.
Delta, control operator. Who may be the control operator of a station communicating through an amateur satellite or space station?
Delta.
Uplink frequency, anybody. Who must designate the station control operator? Licensee. What's an amateur station's control point? Location where control operator function is performed. When the control operator is not the station licensee, who is responsible for the proper operation of the station? Delta. Who does the FCC presume to be the control operator of an amateur station unless documentation to the contrary is in the station records? Station licensee. Station ID. Normal ID, say your call sign in English at the end of each communication and every 10 minutes during communication. So can I speak Spanish on the radio?
Yeah. Oh, I can.
Well, okay, if you speak Spanish and the guy on the other end speaks Spanish, are you allowed? What about French, Russian, German? Doesn't matter. But every 10 minutes in English, you have to say your call sign. Or identify with Morse code. I've thought about doing that. Just taping it and going beep, 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 and wait until somebody complains. Just to educate them that, no, I don't have to say it. Okay, you will generally also say it in making initial contact, generally.
But that's a gentleman's thing. That's a convention, not a rule.
Some of us like to educate people by saying, nah, I don't have to ID for 10 minutes. Dave calls me, hey, what's up, Dave? I didn't ID. I'm legal for 10 minutes or until we stop talking, whichever's first. When transmitting phone signals, you can ID by voice or CW. So that's why I would record it and just play it because a lot of people don't remember this stuff. Normal ID, use of tactical call signs. Sometimes they're tactical, sometimes they're tactical. Don't use tactical. Don't use tactical stuff. That's Paul Blart, okay? The mall cop. Usually used in emergency and public service communications. It's used to identify where a station is and what function it's performing. For example, race headquarters. Does not substitute for proper station ID. So my call sign is KG7TUO, but I am sitting at the control point for the race, not for the radio, for the race. And I got to go to the bathroom. And somebody else takes over. They're going to still say race headquarters or whatever our tactical call sign is. But they also need to give their regular ID. I need to sign off on my regular ID, KG7TUO, and he needs to come on, and within 10 minutes, he needs to give his regular call sign, but he can use the tactical call sign for up to 10 minutes before he IDs.
So he still has to do it every 10 minutes?
He still has to do his ID every 10 minutes. The tactical call sign you don't have to do every 10 minutes because that's not a legit call sign, okay? Your personal licensed call sign is the one that has to go out every 10 minutes.
And that's confusing.
It can be confusing, but it's not that complicated. You just have to ID with your call sign every 10 minutes. If you're running a tactical call sign, that's fine, but it doesn't make any difference on ID requirements for you or whoever else is there.
They want to know who's doing
They want to know the call sign of the operator.
It's a good thing to practice. We did the airport simulated emergency,
Yeah?
and we all went through that, and being reminded to ID every 10 minutes. And you're giving your call sign for the station that you are, whatever, you were doing, it just seemed confusing.
And one of the easiest ways to deal with that is, the only one that really has to keep track is the base station of whatever system you're running. And if that person identifies every 10 minutes, and all the remote stations, if they have not identified recently, as soon as he identifies, identify immediately after that. When your next transmission, identify.
So when we do the Applegate to the coast race, foot race, every checkpoint has a number assigned to it. Checkpoint 1, 2, 3, 4. But if we want to do something like that, then what we could do is we could have a list of all the checkpoints that are ham radio operators, because they're not at every one.
Right.
And then the guy that's at the main point could go, this is race control or whatever he's calling himself. All stations check in. And you just go down the order, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever numbers they are, and everybody needs to know that, oh, I'm next. And then that would cover it. On the Johns Peak repeater, I have it set to ID every 9 minutes. So if you're talking on a repeater and you hear the station ID, it's been 9 minutes. Probably a good idea to ID if you haven't ID'd since the last time you heard the station ID. When making on-the-air test transmissions, you must identify the transmitting station. So if you're going into a dummy load, you're good. But if you're testing on the air, you have to transmit your ID. A lot of people don't do this. A lot of people tune up and don't ID, and that's illegal.
And here's the exception.
The only time an amateur station may transmit without identifying is when transmitting signals to control a model aircraft.
Model craft.
Model craft. I disagree, because if you're sending a signal to control a satellite, you also don't have to.
It's a model craft.
It's not a model, it's a spacecraft.
Yeah, I get it.
At least they didn't put an S on the end of it.
Yeah.
Self-assigned indicators. Used when operating away from your home station, allows other operators to be aware of your location. Who wants to let them know where you are? A lot of people, because I might be on a different grid square and I'm activating that grid square for a contest or a grid collectors or whatever. Example, KL7CC is operating in District 3. He would give his call sign as KL7 Charlie Charlie / Whiskey 3 or Whiskey 3 / KL7 Charlie Charlie. Using phone, he would use words such as stroke, slant, or slash to indicate the separation between this call sign and Whiskey 3. And you will hear this occasionally on the air, and most of the time it doesn't give you any information that's helpful. Self-assigned indicators, again, may not conflict with other indicators specified by the FCC rules. May not conflict with any call sign prefix assigned to another country. ID rules apply. Repeaters must also ID using the same 10-minute rule, at least every 10 minutes. Can be voice or CW at 20 words per minute or less. Satellites and ISS have special rules. ISS, International Space Station. Special event calls follow the same 10-minute rule. Here we go, some more questions. When may an amateur station transmit without identifying on the air? Model craft. How often must you identify with your FCC assigned call sign when using tactical call signs such as race headquarters? Charlie. When are you required to transmit your assigned call sign? Delta. It is not at the beginning. It is not at least once during each transmission. It is at least once during each transmission, but that's not the correct answer, and it's definitely not 15 minutes. What language may you use for identification when operating in a phone subband? Charlie, English.
Could you go back one? I just want to make a comment on that it is every 10 minutes and at the end of communication, not the end of every transmission.
Yes.
People get overboard with their call signs and want to give their call sign after every single go back. And especially in emergency communication, we want to keep it to a minimum. So yes, at the end of a long conversation, but not at the end of every transmission.
Right. What language may you use for identification when operating in a phone subband? English. We already covered that. What method of call sign identification is required for a station transmitting phone signals? You know your phone emission. And how fast?
20 words.
20 words per minute or less. Which of the following self-assigned indicators are acceptable when using a phone transmission?
Delta.
Stroke, slant, slash. Which of the following is required when making on-the-air test transmissions?
Alpha.
Thank God nobody said delta. Okay, third-party communications. A message sent by licensed amateur radio operators on behalf of another person. A third party.
And the key word there is on behalf of another person. And that's what's going to wind up on your text.
Third party. A non-licensed individual, an organization, a licensed amateur radio operator who is not eligible to be the control operator of the station sending or receiving the message. So if you're a novice, you're not allowed to talk on 2 meters. So if I...
It's just bizarre.
It's really weird. I didn't know that until I'd been talking to a novice for a while on 2 meters. Okay, so you're a novice. You can't talk on 2 meters. But you're at Dave's house. Dave can let you on his radio. He's the control operator. Or he can send me a message from you, and that's third-party communication. So he can either way. The third party may or may not be at either station location.
Why does it, I don't even, why would we even worry about third parties if the person actually doing the transmitting is legally doing it?
Because, okay, so...
It happened yesterday afternoon. Hang on just a second. I was talking to Mike Fowler, the president of the club. I had my extra manual in my car because Rhonda wants to borrow it. Rhonda was not there, but I told Mike to tell Rhonda that my extra manual was in my car and I would be at the class tomorrow.
And Rhonda has a license.
Rhonda's going to get that message from Mike. She's the third party recipient. Mike and I are communicators.
Even though she has a license, that's third party communication.
So it's an operator to an operator to tell somebody else.
Yes. Now, you're not allowed to send third party communication to someone or for someone who has ever had their license revoked or suspended.
Correct.
So, how do I know that your wife isn't a suspended license? But that's a requirement.
It's kind of a crapshoot sometimes. You kind of have to go with best guess. But typically you're fine.
So if Dave's wife is suspended and my wife is an extra, and he and I are both extras, and I go, hey Dave, my YL says to tell your YL, oops, because she's suspended, we can't send that message.
So she's out completely.
Completely for third party traffic.
Correct.
She can't transmit, she can't
But if
even mention.
but if the whole world doesn't know that she's got a suspended license or a revoked license, things get dicey.
So revoke means you don't exist. period.
Revoke means you do not exist today.
That's what I mean while you're
Yeah.
revoked.
Yeah.
Right, you have to go and somehow get it back.
Suspended means the same thing. You do not exist today.
You don't have a call sign.
Both are likely going to be reviewed at some later date.
So don't you get revoked or suspended if you don't have a current email?
No, you just expired. Oh, wait, yes, yeah. If they communicate with you and you don't communicate back, yes, you will get suspended. So then you're no longer
You
eligible.
not even know you're suspended because you didn't get your email.
That's true.
That's a catch.
Catch 22.
Yeah. Welcome to the government. So the third party may participate in sending and receiving the message. They may speak into the microphone. They can manipulate the push-to-talk, the key or keyboard. Third-party traffic can never be sent to or from any individual whose amateur radio license has been suspended or revoked.
Ever is the key word. Never.
Regardless what they've done.
Now, nothing there says that if it was suspended and it's been reinstated.
Right.
Okay, 2 situations for third-party communications, and there are different rules for the 2 situations. I told you you're going to have to memorize all this stuff. Within the U.S., communications that cross international borders is the other situation. So within the U.S., there's no special rules. Just make sure the message is non-commercial. Third party across the borders gets interesting. International considerations. Messages on behalf of a third party can only be sent internationally under the following circumstances. Message must be non-commercial, and anytime they ask about commercial, no commercial. There's one exception, sort of. Message must be non-commercial and relate to amateur radio or remarks of a personal character, there's that phrase again, or messages relating to emergencies or disaster relief.
And remember, emergency communications regardless of the circumstances, will be reviewed by some government flag.
During station identification, say both stations call sign. International, not domestic. International consideration during an emergency, special temporary agreements can be established to prevent third-party traffic while the emergency exists. It could be something as simple as they can come to your house. You're a ham radio operator, you put a sign out and people can come to your house and send a message out to their loved ones to let them know they're safe, something like that. Generally, that's going to be covered by a ham calling a ham and saying, here's a message, but it could be that they can talk to their loved ones.
Unless they've been revoked or suspended.
Yes, if they've been revoked or suspended, it's too bad.
I can't
The
send it.
foreign station must be in a country with which the U.S. has a third-party agreement. So, if it's if it's radio operator to radio operator, and nobody said you can't, you can. With third party, we have to have an agreement in place or you can't do third party. Something as simple as Dave and I are talking and my YL says, hey, tell Dave to say hey to what's your wife's name?
Luann.
Tell Luann. Can't do that. That's third party traffic. That's from her to her and they're not involved in a conversation. Okay, make sure that a third party agreement exists. Make sure before you do third party with internationally. Third-party messages can be transmitted via remote control under any circumstance in which third-party messages are permitted by FCC rules. That means you can log in via the internet to some station somewhere else. Okay, that's remote control. Check for current third-party agreements from the ARRL website or FCC sources if you are in doubt. Trust me, you are in doubt. You might be surprised at the countries that we do not have third-party agreements with.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we go. What do you think? Do we have a third-party agreement with the nation of Colombia where all them drugs come from? I heard a no and a yeah. You think, you read the book? We do. CIA wants to sell them drugs. We do have a third-party agreement with Colombia. What about Cuba? Those commie buggers.
I think we do on that.
You think we do?
That's a guess.
Yes, we do. Wouldn't have suspected those guys, would you?
Oh, gotta keep an eye on the.
What about the European Union? That's a big deal. That's a whole bunch of countries over there. They're all kind of mostly
That would be a no.
West. No, really?
They're our allies.
There are so.
Keep your enemies closer than you do your friends.
That's right.
And you're not a vet.
My dad was a Marine.
Yes, keep your enemies close and your friends further away than that. The European Union, we do not have a third-party agreement with the EU. France, the specific country of France, not through the EU. See, if it was through the EU, it would be anybody in the EU. France, a member of the EU, is a standalone country. Do we have an agreement with them? No, we do not. Germany! No? You're right.
It's a no.
It's a no. Italy.
No.
Somebody's cheating.
He's got the list of them over here. Spain. What do you think? Spain?
Yeah.
No. Who the heck can we talk to?
Each other.
Third world country.
Uruguay. Speaking of third world countries. Uruguay?
Uruguay.
Yes. Venezuela.
Yes.
We all know that's a dangerous country. You do not want to be.
Yes. Vatican City. Okay. The Vatican. No.
Pope doesn't want to talk to you.
That's perfect.
No. They do have a radio station in the Vatican City, though. And you can't get a key.
All the countries that have a better security presence are the ones
And
that
keep in
don't want
mind,
you
this
because
whole
they don't-
conversation right now is all about third parties.
Third.
And have direct conversation.
Yes, with every one of those.
Be able to track it.
Okay, check for current third-party agreements from the ARRL website or FCC sources. Says, yeah, you would think our allies you could talk to. Now, you can talk to them, but you can't send a third-party message. So my YL can't tell me to tell Dave to say hi to his wife.
So most of those are more regulated government where all the equipment is registered, even the receiver. You just have a receiver in the house, you register that receiver.
And you can make a receiver out of a germanium diode crystal and a piece of cat whisker wire and a few other little components. And that's illegal unless it's registered. When may third-party messages be transmitted via remote control? Any circumstances in which third-party messages are permitted by FCC rules?
Yep.
Is correct. What are the restrictions on messages sent to a third party in a country with which there is a third-party agreement? Amateur radio, remarks of a personal character, or messages relating to emergencies or disaster relief. When using modified commercial Wi-Fi equipment to construct an amateur radio emergency data network, or ARDN, what is the maximum allowed PEP transmitter output power?
Delta.
Wi-Fi equipment. You think you can handle 1,500 watts?
Barely handled the problem.
10 watts. We're literally talking about the Wi-Fi router that you used to have for your computer, and now they're repurposing it to make an ARDN.
I'd like to see 1,500 watts going to a 10-watt device. That'd be cool. It would.
That's why you go on Amazon and you buy a can of Magic Smoke, because you will need to put it back in.
And that's PEP transmitter output, not
Yeah.
effective radiated power.
Right.
We're often using a dish or a high gain Yankee to get way more than 10 watts.
Right.
Of effective radiation.
Which of the following would disqualify a third party from participating in sending a message over an amateur station? Everybody agree? Alpha. Revoked or not reinstated. That's not the same language they use, though, is it? Revoked or suspended. Which of the following restrictions apply when a non-licensed person is allowed to speak to a foreign station using a station under the control of a licensed amateur operator? A foreign station must be in a country with which the U.S. has a third-party agreement? Are we second-guessing?
Bravo.
It's Bravo. Got to have a third-party agreement, and they're non-licensed, so it is third-party. What is the definition of third-party communications? It's alpha. It's poorly worded.
Confusing.
It's poorly worded.
That's why I said earlier, the key to this is the phrase behalf of another.
Yeah. Under what circumstances are messages that are sent via digital modes exempt from Part 97 third-party rules that apply to other modes of communication? Part 97 third-party rules that apply to other modes, but they're exempt for digital? Which circumstances?
I say alpha.
Alpha.